Hey, this is Gary Collins, creator of the Primal Power Method, and I'm here again with Shawn Perkins with Principal Financial Shield. And I did say that right, didn't I?
Principal Shield Financial.
There we go. I thought I had it out of order. And what we're going to talk about today is, again, continuing on with the 5 ways you lose money and saving for your kids' education. So, Shawn, if you could elaborate on that, I know it's an important topic to people because everyone usually is starts putting away for their child's education pretty early these days because college costs you a small fortune anymore.
Yes, it can. And the inflation rate for college education is about double what the actual inflation rate is for the everyday things that you and I buy and pay for. So yeah, it's going up pretty rapidly, and it can be quite a shock when you start looking into it. I have a 24-year-old son that has already graduated college, and I'm only imagining what the expense is going to be when my current 12-year-old daughter becomes 18 and wants to go to college. So it'll be a lot different. That having been said, the first thing that people look at is the vehicles that are available for saving for college, and that's going to be your education savings account, what's called your Coverdale education savings plans, and your 529 plans, which there are generally a 529 plan for just about every state out there. They have their own version of them, and they vary slightly, but they all work off of the same premise. And then you have prepaid tuition plans as another one, which basically you could pay for today's cost of tuition. You give it to the school in hopes that that's the school your child's going to go to, and you can get today's rates in the future. There's some risk involved with that, but that's not necessarily what this call is about. With the 529 plans, with the Coverdale education plans, there are strings attached as always. You have the ability to contribute after-tax dollars to these accounts, and the earnings or growth will grow tax deferred. And then if you pull the money out of those accounts for what the government refers to as qualified education expenses, then you don't have any tax due on the money that was contributed or the growth. You can just simply use it for paying for your kids' education.
Okay.
The strings that are attached are many and varied. The Coverdale education plan limits you to $2,000 per year per child.
Okay.
And you can only contribute up to that child's 18th birthday. So you better start saving early if you plan on having enough to send them to college. The other limitation would be like in some of them, and the Coverdale education is you have an income limitation. If you make over a certain amount of money, you can't contribute to one at all.
Oh.
So that can be a little crippling, that you can't save for your kids' college education in that way because you make too much money. Another thing that comes into play would be, excuse me, the monies that you save in these types of plans are counted in a calculation on the FAFSA. You ever heard of a FAFSA worksheet?
I've heard of it, yeah.
It's a free application for financial student aid.
There you go.
It's a form that basically everybody who has a child going to college, it's almost a given you have to fill this out. And that form determines how much access you have to financial aid, student aid for education. And all of the monies that you save in these kinds of education plans, they go into the formula that calculates the family's expected financial contribution. Okay.
Okay.
If you have too much money in those accounts, they automatically disqualify you from any kind of financial aid. Now, a lot of parents will think, well, yeah, but my student's going to pay for it or my kid's going to pay for it, so it doesn't matter. My income, my savings doesn't matter. It does matter.
Yep.
They take into consideration what the parents earn and make to determine how much financial aid that the student qualifies for. So, ways that we lose money or contributing to these types of accounts can decrease the amount of financial aid you might have access to because they're counted in the family expected contribution. When you look at other ways to pay for education, some people pay cash. Well, in order to pay cash, you have to save that money. So if you save it in just a savings CD type of a vehicle, you're earning a rate of return on that cash in whatever vehicle you're saving it in. If you take that money out and pay cash for the education, you're no longer earning the interest on that cash. So we call that opportunity cost. We're giving up the ability to earn interest on our money to pay for this education expense. May not have any other options, but that's one way. Another way that people do it, and this one can be quite perplexing, let's put it that way. People accelerate the pay down of their mortgage. They send extra money to them to pay their mortgage off as quick as possible, which while they're doing that is reducing and or eliminating the tax deductibility of that mortgage interest. Only so that when they get done paying off the mortgage, they turn around and refinance and borrow the money back to pay for the college education. Or
I've seen that. I've seen that many times.
Yeah, so when they do that, they are killing their tax deduction in more ways than one. One way is they're killing the tax deduction because each payment that they make, they're reducing the principal balance, which reduces the interest that they pay, which raises their taxes. But the other side of that is there's something called acquisition indebtedness, which is the initial debt you take out when you buy your home, that first mortgage amount. And as you pay down the balance of your mortgage, that acquisition debt indebtedness reduces. When you pay the mortgage off in full, you no longer have the ability to deduct any interest on that house as acquisition indebtedness. You only now have an additional $100,000 worth of home equity indebtedness that you can write interest off on. So, excuse me, you may or may not be able to deduct the interest when you pull that money back out to pay for education. It depends on what you've done with regards to refinancing your home over the years that you've had it. That's a deeper conversation, so I just wanted to touch on that.
That's where you need an expert when you get into that stuff. That sounds pretty complicated right there.
Yeah, it is a little. There's a lot of moving parts. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to point out, and this can be a biggie regarding the 529 plans or the education, the Coverdale Education Savings, which is a education IRA basically, is the possible tax law changes. This could be a biggie. The last several administrations have proposed in their budgets to begin taxing 529 plans. Whereas you could put in, today, you could put in after-tax dollars, and you can defer the tax on the growth or the earnings of that and then pull the money out tax-free to pay for education. The last several administrations have proposed changing that such that you would have to pay tax on the earnings and the growth on those accounts. Now, what they would typically do, though, is grandfather in any money that you currently have invested in those accounts so that you don't have to pay tax on that, but you would have to pay tax on any future contributions.
Okay.
Now it becomes an accounting nightmare because it's hard to segregate which was before and which was after the tax law changes. But if they suddenly make those accounts taxable, that means you now have to save even more money to be able to pay the tax and have enough left for your child to pay for college.
Okay.
So that's something that can change. Tax law changes are on a whim. They just, we need more money. Here's one way to get it. Another thing to consider would be any money that you save for your kids to go to college is money you're not currently saving for either your emergency reserve or for your own retirement. That doesn't mean that you don't do it. It just means that you're interrupting compounding, as I call it. So many of us know what compound interest is. It's when your interest is earning interest. So if you have $1,000 in an account and it's earning 5%, then at the end of that year you get $50 in interest. Next year, $1,050 is going to earn that 5%, and so on. Well, if you build that account value up to $20,000 or $30,000, and then you withdraw that money to pay for college, you've interrupted the compounding of that money. And each one of us only has one compounding cycle in our lifetime.
Yeah.
That means that from the day that you begin working, say at 18, you have until you go to retire to grow your money, to grow your wealth. And if we save money and it grows, and then we pull the money out, and then we save money and it grows and pull the money out, we are resetting the compounding curve every time we do that. And the biggest part of our compounding curve is in the last 5 or so years of that money growing uninterrupted. And every time we interrupt compounding, we reset that curve. And again, that might be a more complex thing, but let me give you an example. Take a penny a day and double it for 30 days. What do you think that's going to grow to?
Don't test my math skills out.
No, but I mean, you don't have to answer it, but I want the concept.
Yeah.
So Day 1, you have a penny.
Yep.
Day 2, you have 2 pennies.
Yep.
3, you have 4, 8, 16, and so on. By the time you get to day 21, you still only have about $50. But by the time you get to day 30, you have $5.3 million. So in that last few days of that 30-day curve, and make that a 30-day curve or a 30-year curve, in the last few days or the last few years is when the maximum amount of growth happens. When we reset that curve, we're giving up that true compounding that we're shooting for. And here's another example I'll use in that. Let's say and this one you would relate to. Let's say you're going to run a 10K. You start out the race, you're thinking, I'm okay, I'm just fine, but about About a mile or two into it, you start to realize that I'm a little thirsty. But all the water's on a table back at the starting line. You have to turn around and go back to the starting line to get your water. If you do that, what is the chance that you're going to finish the race?
Yeah.
Still good, right?
Yeah.
But what's the chance you're going to get back to where you were before you came back to get the water?
Exactly. Yeah.
You're not going to get there. You've lost that time, and you have to keep running, and you can't make it up. So that's the example of resetting compounding. But those are the biggies right there of how you lose money in that type of account. I mean, in saving for college is changing tax laws, resetting compounding, trying to accomplish too many goals at the same time, so you don't make very much headway on any one of them. Um, the mortgage is a big one because that's where most people go to get the money to pay for college.
Yeah, I've seen that's the one I've seen most commonly. Recently, is people taking out the equity line in order to pay for their kids' college at a high-end school. So
right.
Yeah, it's that never sounded like a good idea to me, no matter what. But my attitude is I'm a little simpleton. If you can't afford the higher expensive school, there's plenty of lower end state schools that will educate you just fine. And I think people get wrapped around that, and there's obviously these income curves and all the magazines that you see and all that, and yeah, it's true. I mean, if you go to Harvard, the odds of you coming out further ahead of someone going to, Cal State Bakersfield is much higher, but it's also you were born on third base, more than likely, and you say you hit a home run. It's a little different, and that's why I always look at those numbers as skewed, as opposed to the kid who went to Cal State Bakersfield who probably started life, well, in the batter's box, like the rest of us.
Yeah.
So it's a little hard to kind of equate that. I don't think going $100,000 in debt under any situation to go to school is a wise idea, and that's what's happening. I mean, most students, it's 50 to 100 grand. They're going in the hole, and then it doesn't make sense. And then their parents, if they don't pay for it, the kids take student loans, and to me, it's just figure out the best way to pay for it and not have a lot of debt.
I work with a lot of people that I see in their late 30s and even early 40s that are still paying for the student loans from when they went to college. And it can be quite staggering. Even though they have very favorable interest rates, usually 3 to 4%, those loans are largely gone today. Now, a lot of times you have to get, coincidentally, Perkins loans, is what they call them, but you have to get student loans that are now running in that 7, 8, 9% range. Even though the interest on student loans is tax deductible, it's not enough to offset that increased cost. One other thing I'll throw out there is that the illiquidity of these types of accounts, being able to access this money, it's not very accessible. If you take it out, you're going to have to pay the tax on it. It's subject to your ordinary income tax rate. So what many people will do to avoid that, if they need money quick, is they have to go to credit sources to get money. So now there's another opportunity cost to prevent yourself from accessing that education money, to prevent yourself from paying those taxes. You now will go to get into debt with credit cards, which have much higher interest rates and things like that. So it could cause problems from that standpoint as well.
Yeah. Oh, education's tricky. It was about 7%. I took out Perkins loans when I was in college, but my tally was not high at all. I think I ended up with $4,500, and it was just to get through my last year of college, just to make sure I could afford it and get through. And other than that, I mean, I paid that off in the first, I think, year after I got out.
Yeah.
People spend that within the first couple weeks of college now.
Well, and I think that we didn't set out with this particular call here to say college is either good or bad.
No.
I think college is fantastic for a lot of people. My son went to college, and I assume my daughter will as well. I'm not going to require them to, obviously, and it's totally up to them. This is about how do you pay for college and how it can really become an albatross around your neck because it's such a long-term debt. But it is a good thing if you don't waste your time in college. If you get an education truly in the field that you anticipate working in, you're going to earn enough money to make the difference between not having an education in that field, a college education, and having an education, then it's certainly worth it. So I'm not trying to discourage anybody.
Oh, absolutely.
from doing that. I'm trying to let people know that there are other ways to save for college that may not have these backlashes, these snapbacks that they don't know about and they won't necessarily find out about until it might be too late.
Yep. Well, Shawn, let everyone know where they can get in touch with you if they need your services.
Well, my blog address is www.wiseandwealthyblog.com. My cell phone number is 619 area code 994-1110, 619-994-1110, and my email address is Shawn, SHAWN, at principalshield.com, where principal is PRINCIPAL, and then lastly my website is principalshield.com. So those are the four ways to reach me, and I'd be happy to help anybody else in any way that I can.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Shawn. And everyone can get a hold of me at contact@primalpowermethod.com. If you have any questions, which I get some here and there, and it might spur some other episodes. So thanks a lot for coming on, and I'll talk to you later.
You bet.